Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Great. Just a point of operation. The streaming is on the Hamden Chamber of Commerce's Facebook page. So if there's anyone at home that you want to communicate back with, that's where they go to see this. They go right to the Chamber of Commerce's Facebook page, and you'll be able to see this live streaming. I asked, excuse me?
There's no audio going through that.
I'm working on it right now.
We have our crack committee here, so our IT person's on it, so I'm sure she'll get it up. Point also, everyone, if you could please put your cell phones on airplane mode or mute. It's really, really important. One of the worst things for a candidate who's trying to concentrate, speak contemporaneously off the top of their heads on an answer is to have somebody's cell phone go up and distract them. So if we could please do that as courtesy to all of our candidates, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming. It's a great turnout. The Hamden Chamber is really proud to be hosting this event, our mayoral debate, sponsored by, again, the Chamber. Before we begin, I'd like to go over the format, how we're going to run the debate. We have 4 very capable candidates here on the November 4th ballot. Democratic candidate Adam Sendroff, Republican candidate Jonathan Katz. We'll get to the applause in a second, okay? We can applaud for him in a second. Green Party candidate Patricia Veneer Savendra, and the petitioning candidate Jamaica Jeffries. Tonight, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves to you in an opening statement. The order of these introductory remarks were selected randomly a few minutes ago. Then we'll begin questions once those remarks are concluded, which will then proceed again in random order. The first candidate for each question that we ask will have 2 minutes to respond to that particular question. Then each of the others will be given 90 seconds to respond to that same question. We plan to go through the 4 candidates 3 or 4 times with a number of questions that we have. And then when we're finished, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to provide some closing remarks in the same order that we did with the opening remarks. So that's how they're going to conclude. We would ask you all to please be courteous to both the candidates and your fellow citizens. Ask to applause. I know it's very difficult when your candidate gives a very good response, and I'm sure there'll be a bunch of them. Please don't interrupt and applaud. It just takes away from the flow of the event, and it doesn't allow us really to process the other answers that are coming. Save it all to the end. Standing ovations, whatever you want, but let's keep the applause to the end. Also, any extraneous comments, please, again, keep to a minimum out of courtesy. There's a lot of people here. You'd be surprised. A tiny comment, note, anything that comes right up here and echoes right to the candidates. So, in courtesy to them, let's try to keep the surrounding noise at a minimum. Throughout the evening, if any of you would like to propose a question that we could ask at the end, if we have time, we have Joe here, McDonough, and Kathy Cook. They've got cards. Just raise your hand. They'll come over to you. They'll let you write the question out. If time allows, we're going to pick from those questions and ask those. Okay? So, with all that said, and not for you guys to hear the people you really came here to hear, we're going to start our opening remarks. So, chosen out of the hat first was Mr. Adam Sendroff. So, it's your mic for a 2-minute opening statement, Mr. Sendroff.
Hello? Everybody hear me okay? Great. Good evening, everybody, and thank you to the Chamber and all the residents watching tonight. And thank you to my fellow candidates up here. All 4 of us represent new leadership for Hamden. And make no mistake, we are at a crossroads. My name's Adam Sendroff, and I'm here tonight because I believe in Hamden. My roots here run 6 generations deep. This town shaped my values, gave opportunities to my family, and instilled in me a sense of community. Now I'm running because I want to help ensure that every current and future generation can build a life here too, not one where families feel pushed out by rising taxes or left behind by government. We are facing a moment of truth in Hamden. Property taxes are making Hamden unaffordable. At the same time, our town's finances lack clarity and direction. We owe it to ourselves and our neighbors to demand transparency, discipline, and courageous leadership to make the difficult decisions. As mayor, I will lead by stabilizing our finances and fixing deficiencies in our finance department to make sure we are never in this position again. Growing our commercial tax base by retaining and attracting new business to grow the grand list. Improving quality of life and delivering equitable services, whether that's tackling blight and litter, enhancing public safety, improving our schools, or addressing environmental justice issues in our neighborhoods. I will lead with compassion, data, and partnerships. I will provide steady and effective leadership and management as I've done in my past roles in the private and public sectors. I plan on turning the page and changing the tone. Let's come together and collaboratively address today's challenges and plan for a better future. I'm running because I want results in every neighborhood, on every street, and in every household. Thank you.
Thank you. The next opening remark will be from Patricia Venner-Savendra.
Good evening. That's weird. I'm going to stand up because I'm really short. You guys all wanted to see us. This is me. Since starting my campaign a few weeks ago, people have been telling me over and over again how in years past, when they or their parents moved here, Hamden was the place to live. Pretty town, excellent schools, quiet. Now, however, every aspect of our town is in desperate need of emergency help. Transparency and responsibility seem nowhere to be found. Schools are foundering, our finances are a labyrinth, people are beginning to panic, or at least get very annoyed. We are at risk from the effects of a deteriorating U.S. economic system, global conflicts, and environmental catastrophe. Our town cannot hope to resist going under if we don't pivot away from the standard options offered us by the major parties and their hangers-on. This is why I'm running. I have experience as a creative thinker, a critical thinker, as an artist, and as an astrophysicist, yes, rocket science, and formerly as primary family caregiver for my late mother who had Alzheimer's disease. And yes, I have business experience as well, having been co-owner of one of the first businesses in the USA to specialize in the restoration and conservation of antique works of art on paper. I want to thank you for your consideration, and I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. We are in the middle of history. History is making a huge change, and we can either go down or we can rescue our town and our planet by all working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, it's your opening statement.
Fantastic. Stand up. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out. My name is Jonathan Katz, and I'm running for mayor to bring a new generation of leadership with a new people-first vision for its future to Town Hall. For too long, Hamden has been defined by political inefficiency and fiscal mismanagement brought on by years of incapable administrations and commissions. Our town not only deserves, but needs a new generation of leadership that is focused on keeping Hamden residents in their homes, stabilizing our finances, implementing a cohesive and innovative plan for our future, but most importantly, putting people and not politics back in the driver's seat of our town's government. My family has lived in this town for 3 generations in the Spring Glen and Highwood neighborhoods, and the one thing we have always seen is that community is Hamden's most valuable commodity. And it's that same community that has routinely been let down by people in positions of power that have been more focused on protecting and advancing their political careers than they have in representing you. That's why we've routinely seen higher taxes, skyrocketing debt, a struggling educational system, and most egregiously, no clear plan to fix the mess they've made and no clear path forward for Hamden's future. My candidacy does not just represent a change in leadership. It represents a fundamental change in the direction of Hamden's future. My background in economics, education, and law has uniquely qualified me to make the tough fiscal and budget decisions, as well as policy decisions that are needed in town hall. I'm prepared to use those qualifications to bring common sense, transparency, and people-first politics back to our town's government. Our Hamden residents deserve a mayor who listens, communicates honestly, and puts residents first every day. That's the mayor I'm running to be.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries, an opening statement, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. And I want to start out by telling you who I'm not. Because I'm not a politician, unlike some of the people on the dais tonight. I am a woman who would like to be referred to as a public servant. Because when you're an elected official with a town of 65,000 people, you should not be caring about special interests or caring about a party, but you should be caring about the needs of the people in that town. I'm running today because my neighbors came to my home and told me about the fiscal mismanagement, told me about the egregious behavior that was taking place. So guys, let me also tell you who I'm not. I'm not an avowed socialist. I, am a capitalist that believes in the American way, that if you work hard and you save, you can have the American dream, okay? You can leave a legacy for your family. I'm also not a 24-year-old, very handsome, by the way, gentleman who lives at home with his mom who's not a taxpayer, okay? I'm a woman, okay? Are you believing me? All right? I believe that in order for you to lead, you must lead by example. And we have a $300 million, budget that we can't leave in the hands of just anyone. And I'm also not a gentleman that served on the Board of Education for 10 years. All right, and our educational system went down while the budget went up and our taxes went up. So I want to say to you tonight, I am a businesswoman that runs a very successful real estate brokerage firm. I'm a woman that's worked for Fortune 500 companies, that has worked for AT&T Media and a myriad of different businesses respectively, that knows how to run this town. And if I'm elected, you will vote row E. E for efficacy, E for efficiency, E for elevation, and E for the excellency that I want to bring to this town. I'm Jamaica Jeffries, and I approve this message.
Ms. Jeffries, hold on to the microphone. The first question is for you to start. Describe your leadership style and why you think it would be very effective as mayor in our current climate.
Currently, right now, what we're experiencing is a lack of transparency. There's no response and responsibility, and no one is taking accountability. One of the first things that I want to do, you all, is I want to implement something called HRRT, something that will keep the people in our town abreast to what's happening in the government center. Currently, we don't have any financial statements. We have asked ad nauseum. For 10 months, I've been going to every legislative budget council meeting. And I haven't seen Mr. Sindroff. I've seen maybe Miss Patricia at one or two meetings, maybe Mr. Katz. But folks are not dialed into what is happening in our town government center, guys. And so we need someone that is going to stand up for the people. We need someone that's going to lead them by example. And I say tonight, you all, I am the leader that has worked tirelessly for the last 10 months, through campaigning, through showing up at meetings, through being there. And I want to let the people know that you will have a person in Jamaica Jeffries that you can call on at any time.
Thank you. First response to this question is from Mr. Katz.
In terms of my leadership characteristics, the first thing that I can tell you all is that I won't sit here and lie to you about facts that I know aren't true. In terms of my leadership characteristics, my most prominent one is that I have always been part of successful teams and organizations, not current or past administrations or commissions that have failed our town. More years lived doesn't mean more experience, and more experience doesn't mean good experience. And we've had plenty of the same old experience in this town year after year, and look where it's led us. I'm here to be part of the first real solution that Hamden has seen in nearly 40 years. I graduated summa cum laude from Fordham University with a degree in economics and international political economy with an emphasis in business and accounting. Since graduating, I've built a successful legal career. I volunteered and I've spent time in our local community, strengthening community partnerships. I've volunteered teaching citizenship classes to U.S. permanent residents and Espanol. And I've coordinated with research projects at the Connecticut Association of Schools. I've managed budgets, I've coordinated projects, and I've led people towards shared goals. Those are the same skills that it takes to lead a town. Combine my experience, my education, and my background, and I'm bringing a new spirit of reinvigoration and a new vision for how to do things in Hamden to Town Hall.
Thank you. Please hold the applause. I know everyone wants to acknowledge their candidates, but all it's going to do is slow everything down. We're not going to get to all the questions. Next response to this question is for Mr. Sendro.
To me, leadership starts with listening. I've gone door to door a lot during the primary, a lot during this campaign, and I used to direct the Keith Community Center, and I have an empathetic ear. But what I kept hearing from people over and over again is the taxes are too much, and concerned about having to leave their homes. People who a little older than me, about to retire, looking to downsize. So to me, leadership always starts with listening, and then my leadership style is collaborative. Over and over again, starts with listening and then building coalitions and building partnerships to make things happen. That happened when I was a founding member of the Hamden Food Security Task Force. When I was on the Board of Education, we started our first energy conservation plan, saving a lot of money and helping the environment. When we started the community garden at Keith to benefit the food pantry. And probably one of the bigger examples too is starting the overnight winter warming center for those experiencing homelessness in our community. So it starts with listening and then building coalitions and forming partnerships.
Thank you. Ms. Vetter-Savendra.
Oh, it is still on. My view of leadership is to democratize the enterprise, to democratize the government, and to democratize our town. It is not to attack anybody else, because you're going to have to work with everybody else. I have worked in research, scientific research. I've led by being a professor at universities, more than one. And I think leadership needs to be a collaborative effort, and everybody has to have a voice in that collaborative effort. Leadership does not mean being dictator. So if I'm going to lead this town, when I lead this town, I'm going to look to everybody, all of the departments that work in government, for honest answers that I will then turn around and give to the people so that they can determine what they're hearing, what they're looking at, and where they want it to go. Leadership means facilitation. It does not mean dictatorship. And there is absolutely no reason that any of us should be constrained by age or by political orientation or any other orientation. When it comes to the town, if you're mayor, your politics should be about the town, not about your party, because you're a mayor of everybody and you need to take care of everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is leading off with an answer from Mr. Katz. The current budget includes a 4-year phase-in of reevaluation, both for residential and commercial properties. Two-part question. Describe the issues and potential problems that this phase-in will present to the next mayor, and do you have an alternative plan for the town's tax structure for the next 4 years?
Quite the answer to put into 2 minutes, but we'll get started on it. The 4-year phase-in is going to effectively it causes a lot of issues for the upcoming years in terms of our budget and our tax income, on top of the existing fiscal mess we have. And that's because we're already paying record high property taxes as a result of years of inefficient mayoral administrations. I've sat through and actually attended hundreds of hours of budget meetings, and our leadership routinely has no idea how much money we have. In terms of addressing the phase-in and the problems that it will cause, it's an obvious lack of funds for the years to come, because our town has never gone without raising property taxes year over year. In addition to that, the only way to solve this is to begin by stabilizing the town's finances. I've talked with thousands of residents, and taxpayers want to know and deserve to know where $240 million worth of their money is going. And the way that we're going to do that is implementing a forensic financial audit separate from the yearly audit that will shine a light on where every single dollar of your money is going. I'm going to properly staff our understaffed finance department with qualified financial and accounting professionals. I'm going to coordinate an independent financial review group that will be responsible for ensuring that our audits are done on time and that we have an established plan to make up that time. They'll also be responsible for implementing a 10-year liability reduction plan. Furthermore, I'm going to implement a hiring freeze across the rest of the town until the forensic audit is delivered. Furthermore, the results of the forensic audit will be used to address the issues that it covers up and make smarter budget choices. All of these in combination with each other will allow us to stabilize our town's finances, and then we can move forward with figuring out how to resolve the 4-year phase-in moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Sancroft, your response.
The phase-in is cumulative, 25% of the assessment of each 4 years. So in the next couple years, taxpayers are going to have to get used to greater assessments. So the 4th year is going to be more of a bubble year, so to speak. So it might be a shock to some people that it will be that much. So in order to mitigate that for the taxpayers, we'd look to adjust the mill rate, because the formula, mill rate and the assessment is the tax rate through economic development.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Oh, keep going? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Was that the wrong? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Miscommunication here. So to mitigate that, we want more economic development to lower the mill rate, and we also want to look for alternative revenues or different revenues to change the budget to protect the taxpayers as the cumulative phase-in happens. So that's how I would deal with it.
Thank you. Next response to Ms. Benners and Saavedra.
Still on. So I have been to, if I'm not there in person, I go online, which is still attending. And here's some of the research that I found. Our last audit, and I do think we need a forensic financial audit, but also a forensic audit of how our structure is going, but we'll get to that later, hopefully. As of June 30th in 2023, we had not a loss, but we were in the red for over $971 million, of which $900 million belonged to post-employment benefits. We had bond inflow of $7.3 million, which was part of the fund balance. So I'm going to have more of these numbers, which you don't really want to hear. But basically, 67% of our revenue is property tax, 63% of our expenses relate to education, 28% government stuff. As you can see, that's where most of our money is going to. We need some kind of revenue that's not property taxes. Connecticut is limited. We've got to see what we can do, and part of the mayor's job is looking into this, finding the research, and finding the people who can help her find the right things to do while we still can't do some of the things that other states do because our state government has statutes against doing those things, which sounds all very weird, but it means we need to do some research, and we need to get on it, and we need to make changes.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries.
Yes, my answer to that question is this. I had the opportunity to meet with Roberto Alves, who is the chair of the Democratic Committee for the state of Connecticut. And I said to him, my town hasn't had an audit in 2 years. what would you suggest? And he said, you know what, when I took over being mayor in Danbury, we hadn't had an audit in 3 years. And I said, well, what audit company did you use? He said, you know what, Janika, when you become mayor, call me. The next thing I want to say is that in our Legislative Budget Council meeting where Mike Malone, who was the accountant who's in charge of explaining to us the reval and what the new assessments meant to us, in that meeting, he said to all of us there, some of you were in there, he said, if you can find $20 million in budget cuts, we'll be able to essentially get the mill rate down to 39 mills. Everyone in the room began to cheer and clap because it was the first time we had ever heard 39 in many, many years. And upon hearing that information, we were very excited. And then someone that was on the council says, can you tell us more about the phase-in? So that's how we arrived at that. So when I take office, you all, one of the first things that I want to do is revisit that 39 mill rate proposal, because Katie Kiley, who was also a legislative council member, and Rhonda Caldwell found $20 million in budget cuts to essentially bring our mill rate down. So I will say this to you all, if there is a will, there is a way, and we can find it with some ingenuity.
Thank you. The first response on our next question belongs to Mr. Sendroff. The town has not had an audit of its finances in years. How would you ensure that under your leadership, the town will provide timely audits?
This comes down to management. There are deficiencies in our finance department. We have not had a finance director in probably approaching a year. That is no way to run a $300 million enterprise at all. We need to have also right-size the finance department. There have been recommendations to do that. We need to get the right number of people in there. We need to have a finance director leading and setting course, being able to provide summaries, answer questions at council meetings. And we need to really make sure that there are consistent procedures and controls. We need to make sure that each account is reconciled in a timely way in order to have the audits done. So when I'm mayor, this is going to really be the priority to get the finance department all set, have a leader of it, have the proper number of people in it, and get those internal systems going to make sure that we're never in this situation again. It makes it extremely difficult to plan. There are so many uncertainties. It's embarrassing that our bond rating was pulled recently. These could all be avoided with different management.
Thank you. Ms. Venner-Savento, your response to the same question.
How would I ensure timely audits? Well, first of all, I demand them, and if they weren't coming through immediately, I'd say, okay, let's get another audit company if you can't do your job. If my finance department can't do its job, I'm going to have to seek some other people. If the person who's in charge of the finance department can't do their job, can't show up at meetings, can't give a straight answer to the legislative council, then they aren't doing their job. You have to show up, you have to give me the numbers, you have to give the numbers to the legislative council. I want to see audits. I'm going to have a forensic audit, and I'm going to have help on this because I'm not going to have a chief of staff and an assistant chief of staff. I'm going to have a chief operations person. They call them COOs. Some places call them town managers. Somebody who has the experience, the education, and the certification for running a town which is essentially a small city. We're not a small town in Vermont. We're a small city in Connecticut, and we need to be responsible. When you run your budget at home, don't you keep track of what's coming in and what's going out? We got to keep track of what's coming in, what's going out. It has to be reported. It has to be easily seen by everybody who wants to know about it in advance of anything else we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries, your response next.
I remember being one of the first people to say that we needed a forensic audit in town. And I personally believe that we have a lot of talent already right here in the town of Hamden, some of which sit on the Finance Commission, the chair of our Finance Commission, Rabbi Skolnick, stood in a meeting and said this. He said, I'm convinced after having coming in and out of these meetings week after week, we are a victim of something called bias in action, which means that people are able to take action, they're just more prone to not do anything. So as the CEO of this town, my job is to make sure that, yes, we have a finance director, number one, but number two, that we're staffed appropriately. Why in the world how could you continue to run a town and allow the assistant finance director to pay himself in excess of $100,000 and make himself the town's highest paid official at $300,000 in a year, and we don't have financial statements, we don't have audits, we don't have the necessary things that we need to buy the various things that we need to do the infrastructure in this town? I mean, you all drive down the roads. You all see, I walked through the high school the other day and saw water stains on the ceiling. So the fact of the matter is this, our CEOs, our managers of this town need to do a better job of running their departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Katz.
To answer the question directly, the way that we ensure the audit is delivered is exactly one of the core tenets of my financial plan to stabilize Hamden's future, and that is to properly staff the department with a qualified finance director. And that means not just putting someone in a position who isn't properly qualified. It means looking for someone with a proven track record, preferably in financially distressed municipalities, because currently that's the state we're heading towards. And they need to be qualified on both sides, not just in their technical ability to manage a finance department, but also in their ability to communicate openly and effectively with other members within the town, such as the Legislative Council, and also with my newly created Independent Financial Review Group. The Independent Financial Review Group, until the Finance Department is up and running properly, will be responsible that the Finance Department is conducting all operations in accordance with how a normal finance department should operate. Furthermore, we'll also have new representatives from my newly created Community Representative Program, who will be an independent, resident-driven program to ensure that everything related in the town, especially in terms of budget and finance, are being taken care of properly. Hiring is an essential part of ensuring the audit is on time, and of course, there will be significant mayoral oversight in every aspect of the hiring process.
Thank you. The next question is for Ms. Venner Saavedra. Another question, you all have highlighted one of the issues that's important to the chamber, because our next question is also about the finance director. What value do you see in the finance director position in general, and define your vetting process you're going to go through to hire a qualified permanent finance director?
Qualities that the finance director needs is to understand finances of a town, of a city, to be expert in all of the aspects of running his or her department, of running their department, of communicating with other departments, of communicating with anyone who needs to be in the know. It's kind of like any other position in a university. You've got to have the right credentials for the job. So what does the job need? That's what I look for. The job needs somebody who can communicate, the job needs somebody who can supervise, and the job needs somebody who can keep track of what's going on in their department. And it would be nice if they can do some arithmetic. How will I vet them? I will vet them the same way that we vet hiring a university professor. You get a whole bunch of people's CVs or curriculum vitae or resumes if they haven't published anything. And you go through them. And at one university, the secretary would go through first, and she'd say, oh, this person can't spell. They're obviously not going to be a university professor. They're out. Just by the secretary. It would get to the people who are in the department. Everybody reviews the resume. They say, will they fit in this department? Will they, they know what they're doing. Okay, great. Invite them in to give a talk. Okay, great. Pick one. That's what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Next response was for Ms. Jeffries.
So, yes, in answering the question of how or what qualities a finance director should have, number one is I believe he needs to have municipal finance experience, previous municipal finance experience. The other thing is he must be trained in our Munis software. One of the greatest issues we have right now in our inability to get our financial statements, and I'm just wondering, and maybe I am being a little rambunctious when I ask this question, but Mr. Sindroff, did you have an opportunity to ask the mayor at your fundraiser why we don't have financial statements and why we haven't had an audit in 2 years? Because she really, I mean, her and her whole establishment, her administration, should be able to get these answers for us. So again, my question is, why isn't the current assistant finance director proficient in how to pull financial statements off of Munis? My treasurer, all right, who is in finance by his own profession, Googled how to do it, and they pulled off how to get the statements. So again, we have to have competency in who is getting into these positions. And so I say, it's time out for hiring our friends and our family, all right? It's time out for hiring people that have given us donations, and it's time to hire qualified professionals to get in these offices and work for the people of the town of Hamden. Because that's all that really matters at the end of the day, is that we get to the bottom of what's happening in our town in the finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katz.
The way that we will conduct the search and find a finance director is to immediately begin this upon the time I enter into office. It will be done closely in relation with our community representative program, and certainly if the Chamber of Commerce would like representatives on that program, they can definitely ask and apply for those. Furthermore, we are beyond just looking in Hamden. We are far beyond trying to mend our wounds ourselves. We need to conduct a nationwide search to find a qualified professional to take over our finances. And they need to have experience in unorganized and municipally distressed departments. They need to have experience in budgeting, auditing, and also risk management. They need to understand the state of Hamden. They need to collaborate within our community. And the biggest thing is they can't hide behind their position. When we ask them to come to budget meetings, when we ask them to represent their department at the legislative council meetings, no more hiding behind a screen, no more staying on Zoom. They will be there and they will be an integral part of the community, or they will not be our finance director. They will have the qualifications and they will have the community foresight to see what is best for that town, for our town. And that's exactly what it is.
Thank you. Mr. Sendroff.
We need to find a finance director that's had a track record of success. It would be a real plus if they worked in a municipality the size of Hamden, in a town that has had challenges that are similar. And keep in mind that the finance director, besides just the finance department, also manages the assessor's office, the tax office, the risk manager, and also the purchasing agent. So they need a wide range of experience in municipal finance. They need to be able to manage the day-to-day and keep that going while also keeping the vision in mind and all the planning in mind, and dealing with a plan for dealing with all of our debt and managing the debt and getting the best interest rates as well too. We need, besides being a good manager, as I mentioned earlier, this person needs to be an excellent communicator to provide summaries and reports to the public and to the Legislative Council. I work very closely with the Personnel Director to find qualified people and put together a committee of various people from the Finance Commission, from the Finance Committee of the Legislative Council, members of the public, to help vet everybody and move forward with a decision.
Thank you. Our next question begins with an answer from Ms. Jeffries. What value do you see in an economic director, a development director in town? And if you see value, define your vetting process to hire a qualified permanent economic development director for Hamden.
That's a really wonderful question because just this Sunday, I spent my Sunday afternoon sitting with a possible candidate that I have identified as an economic development director. What we did was we went on every website. I'm a realtor by profession. I'm a real estate broker, so we have access to the Smart MLS. And we identified on Hamden GIS as well as the BGSI systems parcels of land that we could possibly bring in some manufacturing into this town. That's the type of economic development director you need. Someone who knows how to identify places where not just a nail salon, a smoke shop, or a cannabis shop can go, which we all know we don't need another one of those, but some place where actual manufacturing, biotech, bioscience facilities can be placed. And we were able to locate them in Sherman Avenue, as well as in the State Street corridor and in our business park. So the type of economic development director we need is not one that specializes in food trucks, all right, but one that has a manufacturing vision where it's not just the building we're taxing, but also the equipment in the building. So we need medical facilities to possibly come into the town, and different things like that. So again, to say economic development, that's what I specialize in. Contract negotiations is what I specialize in, and that's what our economic development director needs to focus on moving forward.
Thank you very much. Next, the first response to this question now is from Ms. Venner Saavedra.
So I'm going to be controversial. I'm not sure we need an economic development director. Certainly we don't need an economic development director of the kind we've had before, because the economy in our country isn't in manufacturing. We aren't a manufacturing country. Moreover, we don't need more entry-level jobs. We don't need more workers who can't make enough money to survive in our town. If you can't live in our town, why would you want to work here? We need the kind of economic development that supports worker co-ops. You want to manufacture something? Okay, give it a shot, but you got to do it as a worker co-op. We can't sustain the same old kind of economics that we've had for the last 75 years. It's not going to work. So if we do get an economic development person, they are going to have to understand the new economies that are coming out that will work in our country and in our town. And honestly, I don't know that person yet, but I will find them.
Thank you. Mr. Sendroff, your response.
I think the Economic Development Director needs to work with the Economic Development Commission on a plan. It's very important to retain and expand existing businesses, and as well as attract new businesses as well. The Economic Development Director needs to be familiar with the POCD, the Plan of Conservation and Development, which talks about where growth could happen and what types of businesses are appropriate where. They also need to redevelop certain areas. Middle Dixwell is ripe for redevelopment. Bringing in light manufacturing too in appropriately zoned areas like Sherman Avenue and State Street. Keep in mind, housing is part of economic development too. And a key component is workforce development. You should be working with schools and the trades for apprenticeship programs to really prepare people for the modern economy as well. One thing I'd be interested in looking at is setting goals for the Economic Development Director and then checking in and see how they are going in order to grow the grand list to the point that we need.
Thank you. Mr. Katz.
So I talked with a number of past economic development directors, both from Hamden and outside of Hamden. And it always starts with the basics, a qualified professional that has done this before. but what they specifically need to be able to do is balance how to attract new businesses while supporting existing ones, while working within the Economic Development Commission and within a larger plan for cohesive town development. Now, Hamden is divided into multiple different areas that support different kinds of developments. Each of those areas requires a distinct and its own economic development plan that fits to the needs and the residents that represent that area. That's how we can revitalize our neighborhoods while still taking into consideration the people that live here. So we're not plopping down huge developments in primary single-family housing neighborhoods. We can also use data to make smart data-driven development decisions about what are the most profitable businesses within a selected area. Furthermore, working on resident collaboration, they can also talk with the new community representatives that I'll be having. I've also talked with a number of developers, and they say, we look at Hamden, we look at everything, and we see no cohesive plan for its future. We see no reason to invest here because everything just comes together piecemeal. When we have a more collaborative vision, one that makes sense with ongoing development within a singular area that is both residential and commercial, it brings more money to us and it brings more money to the community, benefiting everybody equally.
Thank you. Our next question continues the same theme. We've been asking at these debates the same question for years. We never get a specific direct answer. So here, we're going to try with you four. Here we go again. So there are three areas in Hamden: Southern Dixwell Ave, State Street, and Whitney Avenue north of the connector. They're all in need of development. What types of development do you see specifically for these three sections of town? And if you have any other sections of town that you feel there are in need of development, we'd love to hear about those. How would you address those needs as well? And please try to be specific. And our first response is from Ms. Venner Saavedra.
Okay, well, Hamden is divided up into more than just three sections. It's divided up into districts, and each district tends to think of itself as a personality. At least that's how it seems to me. But because we are such a huge town of 33 square miles, we do have to treat each area differently. So the first thing I would do, let's start in Southern Hamden, because like it's close to New Haven and it's easier to go up than to go down, unless you're on stairs. In Southern Hamden, we need a lot of repair work done. We've got homes that are falling because their foundations are failing, and we need to fix that. So that's a kind of building up a development that we need. We need to develop for the people who are there, and they need their houses fixed. But they also need an economy that works for them. How can I be specific? Well, how can I be specific without asking them what they want? So, what would they like there? That's what I'll ask you. What do you want in your area? If you go to the middle of Hamden, and you see the mostly upper middle class with their single family homes, and they're comfortable, but they also still need some development because there's a lot of what we had, the hardware store that everybody loved and everybody went to, and they retired and there was no one there. We need that kind of development for them specifically because it was there, everybody loved it, people came from everywhere to take care of, to get their stuff there. They need that. In the north, the development is different. In the north, we've got a fight with QU, which is buying up all the houses and taking them off the grand list. So we need some development that says, okay, what can we do for the people up here? What do they need? What do they want? The only way you can do development anywhere is to ask the people what they need and then respond to that.
Thank you. Mr. Sendroff, your response to this question.
There's a lot of opportunity along the Dixwell corridor. In Middle Dixwell, there are a lot of empty parcels, buildings that aren't being used, and I think there's potential there to get a broker, a commercial broker, and put the parcels together for a redevelopment that could be potentially big. One thing I've been wanting to look into is bringing a medical campus to Hamden. imagine Hartford Healthcare, Yale New Haven Health. That would be commercial, but also have valuable personal property, so it would affect the grand list in two ways. Transit-oriented development is also possible along Dixwell from the New Haven border to Skiff Street because the bus rapid transit's coming in. And that could be mixed use. It would be commercial and residential. State Street, I see light industrial and also some housing as well. Whitney, north of the connector, I think we should build out the infrastructure we have, consider running the sewers and water farther north for more possible development. And another area is the business park, the industrial park. I think there could be greater density there, and there could be greater density in a lot of other areas, and we could also go more vertical in areas as well.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, your response.
To divide it generally into three areas, northern, southern, and middle. In terms of southern, this is actually where I live, and I've lived my entire life. In southern Hamden, we don't have economic development. We have economic turnover, giving us the same thing year after year. More smoke shops that come and go, and not the nice ones that they get on the north side of town. Now we've had Walgreens leave because of an increase in crime, and that's in the reported version from the corporate side as to why. In terms of southern Hamden, it needs to be a total, comprehensive economic revaluation and redevelopment of the area. That's going to come from our qualified economic development director, as well as with coordinated efforts with local individuals in the community. For Middle Dixwell, working the way up, I've actually walked the old Moral Motors property with developers. All that they're looking for in that area is for the town to grant them the ability to put mixed commercial and residential property on those parcels. They'd be open to combining it into one single parcel, operating in potentially up to 150 new, largely single and studio apartments that apply to younger generations with a large tax base to take from. In northern Hamden, we're primarily working with single-family homes in small, spread-out residential areas. Those are best suited to small-scale commercial development within those areas that also match the needs that we can use to take additional funds from Quinnipiac students that utilize that area.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries.
Yes, I would say that my biggest issue that I have with the Southern End's economic development is that there's money that actually comes from the state to revitalize those areas that never makes it to those areas for them to get revitalized. So first and foremost, I want to make sure when I'm mayor that the monies that we do get, whether it's CDBG grant money, ARPA funds, so on and so forth, actually go to the places that they're designated to build up those areas. Next, I would say in the northern part, which is along the Farmington Canal area, there are opportunities for us to put sort of restaurants and rest stops for those who are on the trails. I've spoken to many people who said, you know, we wish that we had stores that we could stop at along the way as we're walking and biking and hiking and so on and so forth. So in the northern area where they are limited because there's no sewers, I'd like to leverage some of my relationships that I have in the commercial space with commercial realtors and developers, by the way. Also, we don't take advantage of Quinnipiac University. They're not our arch nemesis. They are the ones that can help us build up this town. And the fact that we haven't tapped them enough is an egregious miscarriage of justice, I feel. So I've already sat with Quinnipiac University. They want to work with us to help us build up this town as a whole. Because for me, I'm tired of having three Hamdens, North, South, and Spring Glen. I believe out of Hamden, out of many should come one Hamden. We are one people, and we should start to work that way.
Thank you. Our next question starts off with a response from Mr. Sendroff. Do you support tax incentives to bring new commercial development to Hamden? And if so, what would they look like?
I would for the right project, but they should be tied to the capital investment that's happening there. It won't be every project, it would be the bigger projects for new projects, but it's also an incentive. Tax incentives are an important tool for current businesses when they want to expand, and again, it should be tied to their capital investment. And that could be for enlarging buildings, increased space, it could be for landscaping, lighting, things like that. It's very important that the incentive does not happen until the project is done and a CO has been issued for that job. So I think it's a useful tool. It could be an especially useful tool if it's combined with state incentives as well. Again, not every project, but the right projects for new projects and also current businesses that are looking to expand, I think it could be very useful.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, your thoughts on this question?
The issue at the core of offering tax incentives is based on the fact that Hamden is not a naturally attractive town to developers. Due to our fiscal instability, our $330 million in active outstanding debt, developers look at Hamden and see a place that has no clear path for its financial future. If we want to provide additional commercial resources in the town of Hamden, tax abatements to some level in a coordinated effort are going to be necessary. But we can use these to a level, not just any way we see fit, but in a coordinated effort to build community development projects, development within blighted areas, and expanding our businesses within predetermined economic enterprise zones. We can also combine these abatements with small town-based grants for businesses looking to start up or expand within their existing area. We can also use tax abatements in the form of employee town-based tax credits, giving those who own commercial property, and especially those who are owning businesses, tax incentives for hiring people from within Hamden, offering an equal trade-off.
Thank you. Ms. Venner-Saavedra, your response.
I don't like tax incentives for businesses. I believe in taxing the wealthy. And if a wealthy business is going to come in here, they damn well better pay taxes. Because the working class, the employee classes, do not get tax incentives. So would I give a tax incentive to any business? Yeah. If you come in here and you're a worker co-op, I'm going to give you a tax incentive. But if you're Walmart coming in, I'm not going to give you a tax incentive. Tax incentives have to go to people who will build their business and build a democratized enterprise, not a hierarchical business where the money goes back out to the shareholders who do not live in Hamden. The money has to, if you're going to get a tax incentive, that money has to stay in Hamden. It can't go out to your shareholders in wherever the heck they live.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries.
Yes, I must say I have to disagree. Hamden is very attractive to developers. As a matter of fact, I recently got phone calls from someone who came to me and said, Jamika, my family and I have 41 acres in Hamden that we would like to develop upon. I also have another large family in town, has 9 acres up on Skip Street. So the problem with Hamden is that historically we have not been business friendly to a lot of businesses that have come to town. So much and so, North Haven tends to benefit from the fact that we're not friendly to businesses when they come to town. So when we turn them down and say no, they just go next door to North Haven. So again, I want to say that when it comes down to developers, we can absolutely do a lot in this town. And I want to work very closely with Mr. Eugene Lifshitz to make that possible. When I met with Mike Frieda, who's the first selectman in North Haven, one of the things that he said he does when a business wants to come in and do business with them, he says, I take them by the hand and walk them to planning and zoning. Then I take them to the building inspector, making it a seamless process. Not a lot of this red tape bureaucracy that goes on in this town. And for me, I want to get to the bottom of that. Because in order for us to survive, it can't be on the backs of the taxpayers. We cannot continue to foot this bill. We need viable, lucrative businesses to come into this town. And the only way we can do that is by progressive taxation. So we have to incentivize them. But we can't just give them, the lay of the land, or else we'll be victim to what happened to New Haven with Pfizer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, you have the first response to our 8th question. How will you work with the town's labor unions during contract negotiations to address existing town obligations and the financial challenges that they're causing?
So our yearly obligations in terms of if we want to talk about pensions and unions are not the only driver of high taxes, which is why it's important to have a comprehensive plan to reform the town's finances and budgeting processes. However, yes, our obligations to the unions and our pension pass do make up a significant portion of our yearly obligations. So we can do two things. We can keep wasting time debating spending money irresponsibly on capital projects. We cannot conduct a forensic audit. We can push the town closer to financial insolvency and kick the can down the road once again. We can push ourselves all the way there until we get to the point of state takeover. When the state comes in, they cut all of the benefits and they raise property taxes in an unsustainable fashion. I don't support this, but if we keep doing what we're doing, that's where we're heading. The alternative, which I do support, is to take a disciplined, practical approach and work in combination with the financial plan that I have developed for Hamden's future. That's because the pension burden accumulated over multiple administrations is not simply going to disappear without the entire town going insolvent. It's time we pay what we're required to actuarially and take smart steps to reduce the obligations. Between using funds found from the forensic audit and reallocating funds from non-essential services like a $250,000 water fountain, we can fully fund and professionally manage our obligations so that pension costs do not continue to compound. Sorry, one pause. I thought it was 2 minutes for the start. I'm at 1:30.
I'm sorry.
Okay, just want to clarify. We can pursue targeted financial tools and lower net cost and risk. We can reduce future liabilities by negotiating sustainable benefit designs for new hires using shared services and lower operating costs. We can also pursue non-union contractual-based benefits in place of contractual ones. In conjunction with my independent financial review group, we can also develop, and we will develop and publish, a 10-year liability reduction plan. And I will be personally responsible for reporting the progress on that every single quarter of every single year until we get to where we need to be.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries.
Yes, undoubtedly, we need a forensic audit again, and I've been saying that all night ad nauseum. Until we know exactly what we have, then we'll know exactly what we can work with and where we are. When it comes to our pensions, back in 2007, while Mr. Sendroff was under the Kirtland administration as chief of staff, our pensions became unfunded, all right? That's when it started, one of the ways it started, okay? But now we're here. And so what I'm saying is, where are the contract negotiators moving forward, all right? I have personally met with some of the top negotiators in this state who are willing to come out of retirement to help us renegotiate and restructure the debt that's in this town. I've also met with union presidents who say to me, Jamaica, we want this to be a win-win. This doesn't have to be someone has to lose in order for someone to win. The problem is we just have not had good negotiations that have gone on in this town, where people come in, they get our jobs, they become fire chiefs and police chiefs, work 2 years, quit, and go somewhere else and get another pension. I say, not on my watch. No longer can we sustain that, no longer will we do that. Also, the state has $4 billion in undesignated funds. And I'm asking, who is lobbying for Hamden? Who's asking for them to bail us out of something? And so I'm that person that's going to be there to request those funds.
Thank you. Ms. Vetter-Saavedra.
Okay, could you please repeat the question?
Sure. How will you work with the town's labor unions during contract negotiations to address existing town's obligations and the financial challenges caused by them?
Very carefully. The job of the union is to work towards getting better pay and more benefits for the union members. a lot of people are working at low salaries. They deserve whatever they can get, as much as they can get, whatever's fair. What I would do is I would start cutting things from the top, from non-union employees. The people at the top who have their benefits, who have lots of pay, who have stipends on top of things, they don't need all that. Pay needs to be a lot more equitable. So how would I work with the unions? Well, first of all, I have to know what goes on in a union negotiation, because I have never been in a union negotiation as a representative of Hamden, nor as a union rep. So I have no idea what goes on behind those doors. I don't know what's going on there. Do you? Does anybody? If they do, they're not telling me, so I can't make those decisions. What I can do is offer people fair remunerations, fair benefits, and then I need to talk to the people who are not union people and say, this is what you're doing, what you're getting isn't fair. You're not getting a fair remuneration. You need to give some of that up. When I'm mayor, I plan on cutting my own salary.
Thank you. Mr. Sendroff.
With unions, it's all about the negotiations. When we negotiate with unions on contracts, we need to be mindful of the fiscal state of the town and really think about its impact on the average taxpayer, especially as we get into multi-years of that contract as well. Pretty soon, I think, as some of our contracts end, we've been on the SEMER system, the state retirement system. The Hamden's pension plan has been closed for many, many years. I think for at least 15 years, new employees have been going on the state plan called SEMERS. SEMERS 2.0 might be able to give us some savings once some of our current contracts end. SEMERS 2.0 is an option. I'd also look at the medical self-insurance fund. That's about $55 million in our budget, a little bit more. It's one of our biggest expenses. The state comptroller has a state plan for municipalities that's premium based. I would like to at least explore that to see if we could get that down a bit. And just to correct the record, Jamaica, I was chief of staff for 9 months in 2021, while a lot of the pension underfunding went on decades before.
Thank you. Next question starts with a response from Ms. Jeffries. Ms. Jeffries, how will your administration work with Hamden law enforcement to build trust between the community and the police? How do you propose to build a sustainable police force for Hamden going forward?
Yes, I have spoken to many of the officers on the police force just as recently as Saturday when I was at the carnival. And they are very displeased with what has been taking place. They feel as though their hands have been tied. They feel as though they haven't been allowed to do what it is they want to do. As a matter of fact, SWAT, from what I understand, was told that they weren't going to receive funding to continue on their training. And that to me was a problematic situation because they are the responders when there's a major issue that happens in town. So the first thing that I want to do is let the police know that we support them in doing their job. I mean, by them sitting on the sides of the road, we are seeing an increase in traffic violations. People are running red lights, stop signs ad nauseum. People are speeding, and it seems as though no one is doing anything about it. For me, I want to increase our police presence, but not at the expense of the taxpayers. I spoke to folks over at Quinnipiac University, Bethany Zimba to be exact. She said that the police officers there are licensed to carry, but they're not licensed to make arrests. She said all we have to do is certify them. So in essence, we could combine our forces where we don't have to hire new police, we just certify their police to help us with our policing situation in town, which is an absolute win-win situation because Yale does that with the New Haven PD. So those are some of the things that I want to do, as well as helping them to police the community responsibly. Some areas feel as though they're over-policed, some feel they're under-policed, but I want them to know that their job is hard enough without us making it harder for them, and that we do support them in their efforts.
Thank you. The next response is from Mr. Sendroff.
Can I please ask you to repeat the question?
Certainly. How will your administration work with Hamden law enforcement to build trust between the community and the police? And how do you propose to build a sustainable police force?
Thank you. When I was at the Keefe Community Center, I was involved in a lot of community policing initiatives, specifically with Deputy Chief Onofrio, who just left to become Chief of Old Saybrook. We looked at the Camden, New Jersey model, which was a real transformation, and they really focused on having a guardian mentality and really focused on de-escalation, which is very important. Community policing needs to come from the community. There needs to be meetings, there needs to be public get-togethers. I've been out in Volano Park, a national night out, taking a survey, what does community policing mean to them? And people responded. That was very informational. So I would work very closely to maintain community policing and expand it in Hamden. And I would keep the police force sustainable by making sure that the vehicle fleet is maintained, they have the tools they need when they need them, keeping steady staffing levels. That could also help with overtime costs as well, and looking for grants as well to supplement the operating budget as well.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, your thoughts on this question?
So our sworn officers put their lives on the line every single day for our safety. However, I've talked with multiple personnel within the department at various levels, and the one thing that they all echo is that they do not feel supported, and they haven't felt supported for a long time. The way that we build a sustainable police department is, one, not only having the mayor and the legislative council, of which I've talked to my entire underticket, who have pledged their entire support to the police department, but also implementing specific programs to address one of the biggest issues they face. And what that is that there is a lack of recruitment and retention. And the way that we can address this is a specific plan I've developed that's been seen all over the state. It begins with implementing a Hamden Police housing incentive. What we do is we use state subsidies to provide down payment assistance, lower interest rates, and we can also provide a local town-based match on that down payment for officers who want to put a primary residence down in Hamden. That contributes also to community-based policing because the officers are living within the neighborhoods that they are policing on a normal basis. I'm also going to implement an officer wellness and retention fund. We can use existing funds within our budget to fund continuing education for our officers, including familial education, familial well-being, and also officer well-being programs. In total, as we advertise this plan, what we can do is we show our officers that we support them, and we can work towards a fully staffed police force. Because at the end of the day, if we're supporting our officers, we're spending smart, and we're making stronger community ties, which is better for everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Vetter-Savindra, your answer to this question.
So this is a very fraught question because for some people, cops are not their friends and there's an animosity between the groups, and this makes it hard on everybody. In a perfect society, cops wouldn't need guns. In a perfect society, we'd all respect each other. It's a two-way street. In order for us to support the police have to be supportive of the people that they're working with, for, and even against. Just because you're going to arrest somebody doesn't mean you have to be violent with them. Just because your emotions are high in, say, a protest environment doesn't mean you get to lose your temper. So the police need to be supported because they do valuable work sometimes, but sometimes they lose it. And that has to be dealt with. And we can't have a repeat of the Washington situation where the police went and shot up that car. We can't have that. So if we're going to support the police have to support us back, and they have to be respectful of us. They have to do their jobs, and we have to allow them to do the best they can. which means we have to support them emotionally and physically as well as just their paychecks.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Katz to lead off. Considering the enormity of the town's education budget, would you support an external audit of that budget as well?
This isn't a very complicated question because I absolutely do support a forensic audit expanding to the education part of the town as well. A forensic audit is designed specifically to uncover where funds are going and identify as a result from the results if there is waste, fraud, or abuse. We need this across the entire town, and that includes the education budget, which makes up an overwhelming majority. Now, I'm not sitting here and I'm saying there is waste, fraud, or abuse in the education department, but I would like to know, when I talked to a teacher on Saturday, and he was telling me about how his education for his students in the high school has switched 3 times in the past 5 years, and that he's making $35,000 while the administrators that sit above him are making well into the $200,000. I want to know where the money is going within the educational system. I want to know why a few years ago, $27,000 worth of stainless steel water fountains showed up at Public Works and sat there for 2 years. I want to know where the biggest part of the Hamden taxpayers' money is going. I want the education Board of Ed, who has long been able to make their own decisions separate from the Legislative Council and separate from the Mayor's office, to show us where their money is going. If they're using it responsibly, great, keep it. If they're not, then that is money that we can use to save Hamden taxpayers an unnecessary burden.
Thank you. The next response on this question is from Ms. Venner Saavedra.
Okay, so the socialist is going to agree with the Republican on something. Amazing. I agree that, I thought without saying that, of course, if we're going to do a forensic financial audit, it's going to include the BOE. You can't not include the BOE. That can't be secret. They can't keep their money secret that way. Yeah, so there's a lot of misspending going on, and we really need to reverse that. It should be the teachers earn more and the admin earns less. Thank you.
Thank you. Next response, Mr. Sendroff.
The question said external audit, right? Not forensic?
Correct, that's what it says.
So I would support an external audit of the Board of Education. The school system is the largest town department, over $100 million now. It has grown quite a bit since I left the Board of Education in 2017. One of the things I'd like to do is, it's always seemed separate. And when I'm mayor, when I have department head meetings, one of the things I want to do is invite the superintendent or the assistant superintendent. I think that's very important. I feel like I'm well placed to build some of those bridges between the town and the school system. Whenever there is a town audit, it does cover the Board of Education. I remember that happening all the time. And we should absolutely do that, make sure all the internal controls are in place, make sure that they're following all of the purchasing requirements that are set out by a charter, and it's work with the Board of Ed too. The Board of Ed has its own finance committee too. They look at the Board of Ed budget and where the money's going monthly. So yes, they definitely should be audited, and everybody should know those results.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries.
Yes. When it comes to the Board of Education's budget, we absolutely need an audit. I take particular issue with the fact that we have a $100 million budget and the school still has not gotten a roof on that building. In 10 years, they have been requesting a roof on our children's high school, and we haven't received it. The other issue I have is I had the opportunity of speaking to 5 classes, AP classes in political science. And one of the classes, a young lady says to me, Miss, when you become mayor, can you help us? She said, I am on the JV girls volleyball team and our jerseys have holes in them. $100 million budget. And to me, that's egregious, folks. So I say, yes, we understand that, there's a lot of wasteful spending that's going on. And so what I propose is zero-based budgeting. We're essentially, and Dr. Mario Ciccarini and I spoke about this briefly at coffee, talking about, what if we didn't give them additional money, but we just flat funded them? Zero-based budgeting will help us do just that, where we don't touch any of their salaries, right? But what we do is we go in and say, what do you need? What does your class need? All right, what supplies do you need? And from there, we'll see that you won't have these surpluses that Mr. Katz already talked about, with water fountains being bought at the end of the year, things that they don't need, just endless supplies being purchased. So again, I support that.
Thank you. Chamber's very inclusive, so we give water to one if we can. We give water to all. And if that microphone does go out of power, we'll share the mic we have. So if the people can't hear you, we'll be running up and down the dais with the mic, okay? Because this one here seems to be fine. All right, so talk quicker before we run out of power here. Next question, we start with Mr. Sendroff. Oh, nice. Yeah, I like it best. We have batteries, just in case, so we're good. Hamden has a shortage of affordable housing for working people. How would you evaluate the proper areas in town to locate additional affordable housing? And again, this is for Mr. Sendroff as first response.
We do have a shortage of affordable housing in Hamden, and it's very important that we get over the 10% threshold that the state sets. If we're not over the 10% threshold, we're susceptible to something, it's a statute 830G, where developers could come in and sidestep a lot of our planning and zoning rules. Once we get over 10%, then we're not susceptible to 830G anymore. So I think we need to work diligently to expand affordable housing in our town. There's a housing crisis across Connecticut. I was disappointed that the governor vetoed House Bill 5002 in the last session. I think it may be coming back in a modified form, which would be good. But in terms of figuring out where that should go in town, one important thing I think to do in terms of housing is make sure we rehabilitate existing housing. A lot of the housing stock in Hamden, especially southern Hamden, is almost 100 years old. We need to rehabilitate that to get it ready for generations in the future. I applaud that there's a CIF grant and the council moved money to fix the Newhall foundations. I think that's very important for the people that own those houses now, but it's also important to keep that housing viable for the future as well. This would be something part of a housing plan for the economic development director. There are many places we could look in the plan of conservation and development. The commercial corridors for mixed use are ripe for affordable housing. There are different places in northern Whitney. I think somewhat innovative development has been done up there. We should work with Quinnipiac on that too. They've moved a lot of people back onto campus, but there still are opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries, you're next.
Mrs. Jeffries. It's all right, it's getting late. So I believe that one of the issues we need to tackle is that we actually had one of the town's largest developers come to a meeting with me and was talking about, we know that we have to set aside 10% of our inventory for affordable housing, and we want to comply. So I think one of the first things we can do is reach out to a lot of these apartment buildings that are already in existence and make sure that they are meeting with the state minimums, because that in and of itself can open up some additional housing for folks. The other thing is I believe in adding additional housing to our roster, if you will. as long as it's done right and positioned right. I don't know if anybody has seen, when you pass the border going into New Haven, that monstrosity that they put up there, right? I think that is Munson or Orchard, right in that area. It blocks the sun. It's a horrible structure. So again, I want to keep the integrity of the buildings that are being constructed in our town to make sure that they look appropriate and they go along with the town's culture, which is another thing that we have to work on transforming here in the town.
Thank you. Mr. Katz?
I'll begin by saying that yes, we must meet the 10% threshold, but with existing and current projects already in the pipeline, we are already on track to meet that 10% with existing projects. So in terms of expanding beyond our existing affordable housing supply, that is something that should be done directly with the Economic Development Coordinator and the Economic Development Commission. We need a well-developed housing plan, and it is going to be mixed both with luxury, mid-scale, and affordable housing moving forward in strategic areas of development. Certain areas support better developments than others. You wouldn't necessarily put in a very, very large, less than 30%, perhaps even Section 8 in another area that isn't Southern Hamden, because right now I can tell you living there, the majority of them are in Southern Hamden. But we need to work towards a comprehensive housing plan overall for the entire town. We can look to make specific percentage increases year over year that align with communal needs, but in terms of hitting that 10% threshold, we've already gotten there. In addition to that, the developed additional affordable housing can be used to help us spur additional commercial growth within certain areas, and we need to look to rehabilitate and use our existing commercial infrastructures in combination with new planned developments.
Thank you. Ms. Venner-Saavedra?
Is this still working? Still working. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Hamden has a shortage of affordable housing for working people. How would you evaluate the proper areas in town to locate affordable housing in?
What an interesting question. So, is this asking me, should we allow working class people to live in Spring Glen or not? Or is this asking me, what is affordable housing? Because I see things that say affordable housing, 80% of the mean. That's affordable? By who? That's not affordable for me. Is it affordable for you? We need to redress and reevaluate this whole question of housing, affordable or otherwise, and it needs to be good housing for people. There are housing that exists on Mix Avenue for which the absentee landlords are doing really horrible things like trying to evict people because they want to charge a higher rent for an apartment that has black mold. This isn't good. We have to change the whole concept of who owns the housing. Housing should be an equitable human right for everybody, and people should get to live in the way they want to live. If you want to live in an apartment, you have an apartment. If you want to live in a house, you get a house. You get help in how to learn how to take care of that. You get help in taking care of it. But it shouldn't be, let's put the working class people over here out of sight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Venner-Saavedra, the next question leads off with your response. Safe to say that the people of Hamden want a mayor who leads with honesty and integrity and who has a strong moral character and who will be transparent. Explain to us how you would uphold those principles as mayor, and if you could share some examples from your past that illustrate it, we would appreciate hearing.
Okay, well, I am what you see is what you get. I'm terribly honest. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. I believe in the integrity of the human being. I'm always honest. I will only work for things that I should be working for. I don't do underhanded deals. When people tell me something and they're confiding in me, I keep it secret. They tell me, oh, don't tell anybody this, but I don't like this dish, even though my mother-in-law made it for me and I love my mother. Okay, I'm not gonna tell anybody. On the other hand, I'm not a priest, so if you told me that you can't be a priest, I'm Jewish. If you tell me that you murdered somebody, you know what? I'm gonna call 911 and get out of there real fast. In my past, I have stood up for other people. I stood up when I was a young woman and I was doing a temp work, as I was a ballerina, but I was doing temp work and I was working in this place and I saw somebody abuse the kitchen staff and I called them on it and I got fired. I don't care because I called them on it. Somebody parked in a handicapped parking place and they didn't have a handicap sticker. I said, are you handicapped? They go, no, I'm just going in for a minute. And I said, you go in and I'm calling the cops. You don't park in a handicapped place unless you have a handicapped sign. So, yeah, I stand up for everybody's rights. I do it loudly, I do it proudly, and I will serve Hamden in the same way as mayor. Loudly, proudly, and for the people.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, your response.
Quite the question to be a judge of my own moral character. I typically leave that up to other people to determine. But in short, this is what I'll say. Everything that I presented here to you tonight, everything that I've shown you on the campaign trail, every little conversation I've had, every Java with John, every budget meeting, and every question I've answered here tonight, you're getting what you vote for with me. Because you want to know what? I can proudly say to each and every single one of you, whether you love me, whether you hate me, whether you don't even know who I was before tonight, that the only promise, besides those that I have shown in my plan for Hamden's future, the only promise I have made to each and every single one of you sitting and standing here tonight is to do my job as mayor. The only thing I have promised is to represent you in that town hall, what you're asking for, what your needs are. That's why all my programs and my policies come straight from concerns of our residents. Examples of my moral character, a little bit of an interesting one. I've always believed, and I am religious, I will say I am a man of God. I've always been aligned by my principles, by my religion, and by those that have been passed down year after year and generation after generation within my family. I believe in everything that is good, that is righteous, and that is moral, and that's the same way I intend to conduct myself and my administration when we walk into town hall.
This is Jeffrey, your response.
What an interesting question, because I am a woman of faith. I've been in ministry for over 30 years, and I take that very seriously. I had a television ministry for 10 of those 30 years, and so I actually sit on a board. I am for the Board of Realtors on the state level. I am on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which actually was in charge of rewriting our code of ethics. And an example of my ethics would be this. When I was actually approached by a business owner that said, listen, a very wealthy family wants to support you and they want to back you. I was very proud to tell that individual, I said, that's wonderful, thank you so much. I said, but I want you to go back and tell that individual that I cannot be bought. And whatever they would want me to do, if it's not good for Hamden, then it's not good for me. I don't need a hot tub. I don't need you to give me first class tickets to Europe. I don't need anything because I already have done that. You understand? So what do you give a woman that already has it all? You give them 65,000 people to work for her. All right? You give them people to fight for her. And you give them people to stand up for her. And when I'm your mayor, that's all you're going to get from me. The truth, transparency, someone to take responsibility, and someone you can hold accountable.
Thank you. Mr. Sandrock,
A major guiding principle for me is the golden rule, to treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's something I consistently implement, and I feel it's almost contagious. You're setting an example. want to extend kindness. I have a deep sense of justice and fairness. When I was at the Keefe Community Center, I slowly realized that almost everything we did was related to public health. So in 2019, I set out to get a Master of Public Health, and there's a lot of social justice worked into that. Very interested in making sure people are treated fairly. Like I think Patricia said, what you see is what you get. Could ask anybody who I've worked with over the years, anybody who knows me. I feel like I exhibit honesty and integrity, and I also am very, I mentioned earlier, I'm an empathetic listener, and that's another thing that I build up into my leadership style as well.
Thank you. We had 2 more questions to ask. We're scrapping them. We've gotten 2 questions from the audience. So these are your questions now for the panel. The first response on this question from the audience is for Ms. Jeffries. It is, would you ever consider filing for municipal bankruptcy in order to renegotiate the town's contracts?
I would say this, after we get our forensic audit, and after I go to the state and lobby for some of that $4 billion, and after I go to Quinnipiac University and Southern and Albertus Magnus colleges to ask them about their pilot programs, especially Quinnipiac University, because even though they don't pay taxes, they have something called the pilot program, which is payment in lieu of taxes. After I've done all of that, and I've spoken to our Finance Commission, and I've spoken to our Finance Committee, after I have done all of that, if MARB is our last resort, and that's what's best for this town, then that's what we're going to do.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, your answer to that question.
It's a very scary question. And while bankruptcy we can see looming in our future, that's what we're guaranteed to get if we continue to do things the way we've been doing them for far too long. We have time. We have people with ideas, and we have people that have the leadership skills necessary to stabilize the town's finances as they stand. It will not be easy. It will not be something that is going to be flashy. However, the overwhelming burden of bankruptcy across each and every single one of you will be unlike any financial pain that we have ever experienced. I would rather take all of my programs, implement as many of them as possible, see them fail, go to MARB level 1, then 2, then 3. I'd rather do all of that before I enforce bankruptcy on the residents of Hamden. While we still have time to save this town, I will not consider bankruptcy unless it is the only possible revenue, only possible venue that we can go to save this town from total collapse. But that's exactly what it is. Bankruptcy is total collapse. Throwing in the towel and saying, we can't do this anymore. I will not stand by that.
Thank you. Senator Sylvester, your response.
No. No, I will not declare bankruptcy. That's failure, and I don't think that we're going to fail. I think that we can persevere, and I think that we can, I'm sorry, I'm cold, it's freezing in here. I think that we can make it, and I think we can make it without it burdening the taxpayers, especially the working class taxpayers. Tax the wealthy businesses, tax the wealthy people, but we can make it, and we need some help. We'll need help from the state. We may have to ask the state to make some changes in their statutes, but we can do that because states can change their statutes, and we can be creative, and we can get a town a small city that can be as great as we can envision it to be, and we don't need to go bankrupt. That's just throwing in the towel, and no mayor, I don't think anyone at this table wants to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Sendroff.
Hamden is currently reviewed by MFAC, which is the level below MARB. MARB is very unpleasant, and I think it would be very bad for the taxpayers. If that happens, you might expect a supplemental tax bill, which I don't think anybody wants. One of the triggers for MARB is if the municipality has a deficit and you sell bonds to raise money to cover that deficit. I don't think we're near there, but we don't really have a clear financial picture right now. So you want to hope for the best, but expect the worst. Once we have an objective view of the town's finances, then we could potentially make the tough decisions. But something to avoid, but we really don't know what